The Sacramento Kings have been a wild team as they've given their fans a roller coaster of emotions as they recently in these past couple years have been riding the highs of being a playoff team, being one game away from winning a playoff series to now being 3-11, currently 14th in the Western Conference on a 6-game losing streak and looking like one of the teams that should be blowing it up. And for a team that was looking to erase a playoff chase and trying to change the history of this team, this is just not great for this season and makes their questions even bigger going on into these next coming off seasons on what this direction should be, with the West getting stronger and the Kings seemingly getting worse. So in today's episode, we're going to be diving in and exploring the latest on the Sacramento Kings this season, all on this episode of Swish City. I'm your host, Bruce Veliz. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And if you enjoy videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we'll be having videos come out on this channel hopefully every couple of days or maybe once a week. We had a video talking about the Dallas Mavericks just last week that absolutely smashed, and I really do appreciate all the support you guys have been given. So without further ado, let's dive in and let's talk about the Kings, and let me know your thoughts. So like I alluded to in the introduction, the Sacramento Kings just haven't really been living up to these expectations. And for a couple years ago where they were, a playoff team winning the Pacific Division and almost beating the Golden State Warriors in a playoff series, a rival that really sparked in their division there, now seeing them in this position is very, very curious. So how did the Kings realistically get here, and kind of what really happened? Well, they went and really reshuffled their team and made a lot of other weird moves. They obviously traded away Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis. That was their kind of major changing piece, with him and De'Aaron Fox working with this 1-2 pair. But then last season they traded away De'Aaron Fox, brought in Zach LaVine, and seemingly haven't been able to find this rhythm. They've also added other pieces like DeMar DeRozan, other younger pieces as well, like Devin Carter and Keon Ellis, and it just hasn't really been able to produce for this Sacramento Kings team. Even after this offseason of signing Dennis Schroeder, bringing in Russell Westbrook, trying to get this newfound team really underway, we can see that on the ratings, they just haven't been great. Rating a 109.8 offensive rating, putting them 25th in the NBA, and also a 128.4 defensive rating, putting them 27th in the NBA, retrospectively, with a negative 10.6 net rating, placing them around 26th. This is where you would expect the Kings to be, a bottom 4, bottom 5 team in the NBA, because seemingly they cannot produce on the offensive end. But and as we know from last couple of years, they haven't been able to defend, and that is clearly still an issue with this Sacramento Kings team, putting them towards the bottom of the league here. In the last couple of years, specifically the season where they were very successful winning the division in the Pacific Division, becoming the 3rd seed for when they're making the playoffs for the first time in like 20 years or something like that. The Sacramento Kings had one of the best three-point shooting teams in their franchise history, but also in the league. Unfortunately for the Kings, they haven't been able to live up to those three-point shooting values since those seasons, to where it's really slighted their offense and made them a little bit worse. They also have had some injuries this year, with guys like Keegan Murray, who have yet to step out there on the floor for them this season. Murray has missed the start of the season after he underwent surgery in October to address a torn UCL in his left thumb, but recently he had just been practicing in the G League with the Stockton Kings, trying to get back into this rotation, and that is going to be key for the Sacramento Kings team, as there are some big holes on this roster, specifically in that wing department. They have some bigs, they have a lot of guards, they don't really have a lot of wings, specifically ones that can shoot the three and play defense, seemingly what Keegan Murray does best for the Sacramento Kings team. And with him being out, they have clearly missing a vital part of their offense, but also there's weird defense that has not have been that great. So what are the Sacramento Kings really going to do? Because there are some main concerns here with this team, as players have been getting benched for this team. Keon Ellis recently just got a start, and I was listening to a podcast. Shout out to Sam Quinn and Yossi Goslin of the Third Apron, because they do a fantastic job. And they were talking about Keon Ellis getting a starting role the other day, but only played 15 minutes when he did get the start, with Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench, still finishing out with 30 minutes. That cannot be happening for the Sacramento Kings, specifically when they are so terrible on the defensive end, clearly rating 27th, and Keon Ellis is one of the better on-ball primary attackers and POA defenders at the guard position that we have seen, and he's still a young player that can develop. We also have some other guys like Devin Carter, a former lottery pick that hasn't really been getting playing time for the Sacramento Kings team. We also had the weird start of now Russell Westbrook getting some more minutes, with him getting the elevation over Dennis Schroeder, trying to find, what is this rotation going to be like to dominate for the Kings. And clearly they're trying everything within this rotation, trying to put any guard out there to try to see what works, but clearly nothing is sticking. Also, the roster is a mess, like I did allude to in the beginning. If we want to look at the kind of depth chart here, when looking at it, there's not a lot of wings on this roster, right? There's DeMar DeRozan, there's Keegan Murray, and then Nick Clifford as their other young piece, but that's basically it. It's all guards, and that cannot be happening for a team that is also struggling on the offensive end. The roster just doesn't have a built together. And I know it's positionless NBA basketball now, but for me personally, as an NBA fan, I like to see some structure. You have to have some size, right? You have to have some physicality. I get it. You can have different roles and different players play those different type of roles, but ultimately, I do think you're going to need, bigger bodies. You're going to need the wings. You're going to need defense. You can't just have an all-offensive team out there, and that's what the Sacramento Kings realistically do have. And seemingly, lastly, they have no direction, right? They have all these star players here that they're trying to win a championship with. Zach LaVine at age 30, DeMar DeRozan at age 35, Sabonis at age 29, Malik Monk at 27, Schroeder at 32, and where are they currently slated? Oh yeah, that's right, 14th in the Western Conference, 3 and 11th, nowhere near the top half of this Western Conference, and seemingly no path to get there. So what are these questions, and what should the Sacramento Kings do, right? What is their goal? What do they really want to do this season? Do they want to keep trying to push and continue, or should they ultimately turn around and blow it up and reset this thing, even though the small market does not want to blow it up because they haven't found much success in this last, 20 years besides those last couple playoff runs and excitement that they had for like a season or two. They should ultimately look to blow it up and try to figure out what are their issues. Clearly, they stink as a defensive team. Clearly, they can't find any offensive rhythm. Clearly, this ownership and direction just doesn't know who to start in. I know there are a lot of people that are concerned, and Sacramento Kings fans out there as well are very, very livid about how they've been able to handle things, because it's not ultimately the Kings' fault, right? It's the ownership's fault. It's how things are handled behind the scenes. But the Kings should be a smarter front office. They should be run in a better direction to have these types of things fixed, so that they shouldn't be one of the laughing stocks of the NBA and be put into these positions where they're trading De'Aaron Fox, who was, their best player in the last couple of seasons, that was going to be their transitioning star, the guy that they drafted to take them out of this rebuild, for a player in Zach LaVine, who has been a really solid offensive player, but ultimately is on a very, very bad contract and puts you in a tough position even now, where you still want to get some positive value and still someone that can help you compete. But now, with that contract and being in this position, you're now ultimately maybe even stuck with that contract for those 2 seasons. So for the Kings, this is just not the greatest thing, and that kind of gets into this here, because personally, similar to the Dallas Mavericks video, which if you missed, definitely go check that out, I think that it is kind of clear and evident in the Western Conference right now who's in that top half and who's in that bottom half, and the Kings and the Mavericks kind of are in that bottom half here. Now the Kings, I think, have a little bit of a kind of clear set more direction towards the bottom than the Mavericks, because who knows kind of happens with Kyrie Irving and yada yada yada. But with the Kings, we kind of have seen these last couple seasons what this talent truly is, and unfortunately, it's just a team that's not going to be good enough to win. Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, they're all great talents, but even as 3 stars, there's not one single all-star that's going to take command and is going to lead this team to victory, be able to take those big shots, be able to hit those big-time game winners, be able to deliver on both ends of the floor. It is just not there. Seemingly at this point in their career, DeRozan's probably a 3rd, 4th star. Sabonis definitely a comfortable 2. Zach LaVine probably a comfortable 2, 3, and that is okay. Ultimately, Sacramento, they should be looking to move off of these contracts, and their goal should be to reset this roster. Like I said, you have no wings, you have no dominant, true rebounding big man that can be that paint beast. You need to really reevaluate how you're going to fixate this roster and put a team around some younger pieces, because they do have some star guys that can blossom, that can peak out, right, that have made some names for themselves, but they just have to find those other pieces to go alongside of them. And unfortunately for the Kings, they haven't been able to do that. So I think they could trade multiple players. As you guys can see, this list is very, very long, but it goes to basically just tearing it down and stripping this Kings team to its cores, right? Trading away Domantas Sabonis, trading away DeMar DeRozan, trading away Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, Dennis Schroeder. I wouldn't personally trade Devin Carter or Keon Ellis, but they're not playing them. They seemingly don't want to really give it to them. I did see a tweet when getting this video ready that the Kings do kind of want to keep Keon Ellis, which he can be the first point we kind of talk about, because he's still a young, intriguing player. He's going to become a restricted free agent this offseason because the Kings didn't extend him for some weird reason, and I'm very, very confused on what's happening there. If I'm the Kings, One, I already would have tried to extend him. Now, I did see a tweet that said that when he becomes extension eligible in February, the Kings are going to try to renegotiate a contract with Keon. But who's to say that the Kings give Keon what he feels like he is worth, what he is needed? And even if Keon takes that exception, who's to say that the Kings are going to play him? Because seemingly they haven't been able to give him that favor these last couple of years, or even mainly this season, where he's been struggling to get minutes for this Sacramento Kings team, regardless of him being exactly what this team needs. A defensive player that is going to be an on-ball threat, be someone that is going to be feisty and scrappy and stick to the opponent's best players and be able to be that lockdown defender in that guard room, something that this Sacramento Kings team really vitally lacks. But then also a guy in Devin Carter's another young piece that hasn't really been getting that much playing time for the Sacramento Kings team. And once again, a former lottery pick, someone that is intriguing, but with him being on a rookie scale deal, similar to Keon Ellis, it is a little bit difficult to trade these contracts if you're the Sacramento Kings, having to attach them with other pieces like a guy like Sabonis or DeMar DeRozan. And that kind of complicates the trade because then it ultimately figures out what are you really getting back for those guys. Then we can kind of get into some other players that I think the Kings could trade as well, some being in this list, the main 4 stars, and Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroeder. Schroeder and Westbrook maybe might not go. Westbrook I put here just because if the Kings are tanking, I feel like he would want to win a championship. I feel like he wouldn't want to be on a bad team. I feel like the Kings would do him justice to trade him. Similar with Dennis Schroeder, I feel like he was just kind of a salary filler point guard that they brought in here, and Schroeder had some great success last year with the Pistons kind of playing in that backup role, and I feel like really does thrive as more of a backup point guard at this point of his career, more compared to a starter. So I feel like if the Kings were able to get him to a team in that role, then that could be very valuable. But with his contract, and maybe that's not going to be possible for the Sacramento Kings because Schroeder does make $14 million for this season, but also for the next 2 seasons as well, which could be a little bit complicated for a team to want to trade for a guy in Schroeder. He might just end up sticking there. But then lastly, let's dive into the 4 main pieces: Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, and Zach LaVine. I feel like those 4 would be the names to potentially be traded. Zach LaVine obviously making the most here at $47 million for this season, and then a $49 million contract for next season, making around $50 million for a player that's going to be, second or third option. With the salary cap and these apron restrictions is very hard, but I do think that there's a possible way for Zach LaVine to get moved to some other teams here if their opportunities were right. But I do feel like out of all the players for the Sacramento Kings, just due to the fact that his contract is so high, it will be the hardest to trade him, even though he might be producing the best for the offense for the Sacramento Kings this season. Then we look at Domantas Sabonis. I feel like if they are going to trade any player and really reset this rebuild 100%, Sabonis is that guy. He was the one that they traded for to take this next step to pair up with De'Aaron Fox, trading away Tyrese Halliburton, who was obviously blossomed over in Indiana and ultimately looked like a mistake for this team. Sabonis could be that, that trade once again that could respark this team to once again reset from the De'Aaron Fox Sabonis era and into a new era with this Sacramento Kings team, really developing into some younger pieces, and which something that they maybe should have done was would traded De'Aaron Fox and kept a guy in Tyrese Halliburton. Maybe they can finally figure that out, getting that young star in by trading a guy in Domantas Sabonis. Lastly, DeMar DeRozan and Malik Monk are also here. DeRozan making $24 million this year, has a partial guarantee on his contract next year at $25 million, which could result in a team taking a strike on DeMar DeRozan to seemingly just add him as some additional scoring and playoff help for this season, obviously as a combo kind of scorer and someone that can be virtually really good in the mid-range. DeRozan could add that additional help for a team. And then lastly, Malik Monk as that sixth-man type of offensive flamethrower. He makes $18 million this year, but then his contract increases to $21 and $22 million. He was mentioned in the Golden State Warriors trades with the Jonathan Kuminga situation. That's something that I still think could happen potentially with the Sacramento Kings and Golden State Warriors as we get closer into the season. If the Warriors feel like they don't really want to keep Kuminga still in the Kings, feel like that Kuminga could be a nice little reset by getting in a young star piece, they could probably facilitate a trade, giving out some of their draft capital that the Kings have, with them having an excess of it, to try to get a contract like Malik Monk off of their team and to get a player in Kuminga that could really help the change for this next direction. Now, I think a guy like Domantas Sabonis probably could go for some picks and maybe a young player. DeMar DeRozan, probably just some salary filler and a pick. LaVine is going to be one of the harder ones to trade, but if they could get off that contract as well, I'd be very, very impressed. And I'd be ultimately happy for the Sacramento Kings if they could get off all 3 of Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, and Zach LaVine, so they ultimately can find that new reset and find that new direction to head into. Unfortunately, it would not be a promising one. It will probably be one that will take a couple years for the Kings to kind of come out of, but at least then you have an actual direction to be bad in this Western Conference and to find your next piece here, especially in this draft class, having your first round pick and potentially having other first round picks from other teams in this class. You could be able to get either one or multiple pieces in a pretty solid draft class to stack up for the future, with potentially even getting another intriguing piece or another young star to add on top of that to really set the pace for this direction. And ultimately for the Kings, I think that's what they should be doing. Like I stated, 3-11 in the Western Conference here, just no really path of climbing out. And within the West, there are teams that are setting themselves apart early, with teams like the Thunder, who have only lost one game, and then you got teams like the Pelicans and the Kings, who are quietly at the bottom. So ultimately, this is what I think for the Sacramento Kings. I'd like to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Unfortunately, this hasn't been a great start to the year. I've kind of predicted that they were going to be bad. I didn't expect them to be this terrible, but I did think they would be towards the bottom here of this Western Conference and that they would be making some trades. Now, I didn't think it would be basically everybody. I thought it'd be maybe DeRozan, possibly Sabonis, keeping Zach LaVine. But at this point, it does look like potentially at least 2 or 3 of these big 3 that the Kings went all in for just last season could be off this team on new teams, and we could have a really bizarre Sacramento Kings core that is chasing something new going into the future. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, how you guys think about this Sacramento Kings team. Like I said, I do enjoy all the comments and appreciation down below. So thank you guys so much for showing it. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out.